The topic for discussion is the Keynesian concept of effective demand with nonlinear aggregate demand and aggregate supply curves. Effective demand in macroeconomics. Let us go direct to the diagrammatic analysis. The vertical axis measures aggregate demand and aggregate supply. It also refers aggregate demand price and aggregate supply price. This is the point of origin, O. The horizontal axis measures the volume of employment. Now we draw the aggregate supply curve. Aggregate supply curve goes upwards. Here we indicate that this is the level of full employment. If there is the full employment, then at that situation aggregate supply curve will be vertical here. We draw the tangent T1 here and tangent T2. If we compare these two slopes of these tangents, we see that slope of T2 is greater than T1. Then what is the implication? Aggregate supply price increases with increased level of employment, and it increases at an increasing rate. That is, the slope is increasing gradually. Now, at the level of full employment, we have seen that the aggregate supply curve is vertical here. Aggregate supply curve cannot cross the level of full employment, so it cannot go like this. It will have to go in the vertical direction after the level of full employment. Now we draw the aggregate demand curve. It goes upwards. We see as volume of employment increases, aggregate demand price, that is the expected receipts, increases with every level of employment, but it increases at a decreasing rate. Here we draw the tangent at this point, and another tangent is drawn here. And if we compare the slope of the tangents, we see that slope of T2 is less than the slope of T1. The implications is that the aggregate demand price increases with every increase in employment, but it increases at a decreasing rate, and as such the slope gradually decreases. This is the point of intersection, and this is E, the equilibrium point, where aggregate demand and aggregate supply are equal to each other, and this is the aggregate demand and this is aggregate supply. That is, the expected receipts and the minimum receipts needed, both these are same. O and 2, it is the determined level of employment, but this employment is below the full employment level, and as such it is called underemployment. So we can say that the point equilibrium, this point is also called underemployment equilibrium. Now, if the entrepreneurs desire to give employment O(n)(1), we see that the expected receipts, that is the aggregate demand price, it is greater than aggregate supply price, that is the minimum cost necessary for sustaining this level of employment. So the difference between aggregate demand price and aggregate supply price leads to profit. As there is the expectation of positive profit, the employment level will go on increasing up to N2. The volume of employment cannot increase to N3. Why? Because here the aggregate supply price is greater than aggregate demand price, that is the minimum cost necessary for maintaining this level of employment is greater than the expected receipts. So it indicates the loss. And this negative profit will lead him from NF or N3 to N2. Now at this situation, if government comes forward only with the volume of spending, then with this shifting of aggregate demand curve, it intersects the aggregate supply curve at the point F. And at this point F, the full employment level, that's the ON3, which may be called ONF. This full employment level can be attained with the help of active government participation. In a capitalistic economic system, the market economy cannot reach automatically the full employment equilibrium. According to Keynes, the underemployment equilibrium is the natural consequence. The deficiency in aggregate demand to reach the full employment equilibrium situation here would be due to the deficiency in spending. Aggregate spending consists of consumption spending and investment spending. According to Keynes, consumption propensity remains more or less stable. So, it is due to the deficiency in investment spending the full employment level cannot be attained in a market economy. Keynes thought that the deficiency in investment would be due to declining MEC, that is, the diminishing expected returns, and the liquidity trap on interest rate. At this situation, the government's active participation in the economy with deficit spending will have a positive effect on the shifting of AD and thereby to reach the full employment level ON3 or NF, that is the full employment situation,